to go live. Oh, okay. I think it says live. I'm not ready to go live, but it just happened anyway. So here we are. Hi there. I'm Brett Valentini from a baseball website called Southside Sox. You may also know us from a podcast we do under the title of Sox Populi. So welcome to that. If you're watching us, we're live in 3 spots. If we have a viewer or two, great. Tommy Barbie, I've assigned, he didn't want this assignment. I've assigned him to monitor the YouTube page. So I don't know if somebody
We're live.
is yelling, then, then we'll listen to you yelling and we'll incorporate your yelling into our pod cast. But anyhow, thanks for joining us. And I say that not to an audience that may not exist, but to my 3 wonderful guests. It's Tommy Barbie, coming straight out of, I believe, straight out of Columbia. And Joe Reeses, I think still of the Indianapolis field office. That's going to change, but we're going to keep tabs on them, and we'll see how things change. The hair gets longer, the background gets crazier, the connection gets stronger. Who's to say? And the special sauce, the lucky charm here that's kept Joe on the broadcast so far, it's Malachi Hayes joining us. And again, as I have already told him, this doesn't just work for just whatever live streaming or podcasts. When Malachi enters the room, just good things happen. So thank goodness we can move forward with this podcast because Malachi has joined us and is ready to play softball again now that the smoke has cleared. Okay, we are on Sox Populi podcast 152, the first live streaming one. Again, you may never know it, but for now, that's what we're going to call it. So 152, quick check on how the White Sox are doing. We go through this every podcast, and it really has just been a few games ago. So apologies for any repeat here, but White Sox now 37-49. That's not good. That's a .430 winning percentage, does project to a 70-win season. Somehow, even the most garrulous of us on staff did not see a 70-win season. Now we're thinking a 70-win season. In fact, Crystal O'Keefe has probably already revised hers to 47 wins like she did last year because she tends to get disgusted and fiery about this club. I wouldn't revise mine down that low. Maybe not even to 70. I still think this is probably a better team than that, but don't trust me. What do I know? I'm just hosting a quiet live stream. 6 games in the loss column behind Minnesota in first place, 5.5 back. So that was just a shout out to our friend Steve Stone. 6 in the all-important loss column. Again, run differential or just winning percentage projects to a 70-win team. Malachi, this is a rerun for you, but again, we'll just do a little gut check to start. I mean, obviously, there's nothing that happened over the weekend. Almost losing 3 of 3 to Oakland, which last time I checked, worst team in baseball. So there's not a lot of hope there. I'd say a significant difference with the team is Michael Kopech at an inopportune time, as if it's ever an opportune time, is taking a break. So now the White Sox have, at best, 3/5 of a real rotation. That's not going to help things, I wouldn't think, moving forward, even though the White Sox are back at home and ready to win, ready to chase after the Twins for first place. But, I mean, I can anticipate the answers, but anything recently, let's just not winnow it down to the Oakland series. Anything recently offering hope for the White Sox and their chances in 2023?
No, not really. They've been in the same place for about 2 months now. They've been in that kind of 10 to 14 games under 500 range since kind of the end of that losing streak there. And somebody, it might have been you, Brett, I don't remember who said, at the end of that, 10 games under 500 is the new 500.
It is.
As far as hanging around there. So, just every series like this, every 2-week stretch or so, just kind of solidifies that this is what they are. So it's hard to say I'm moved from the last time you asked me that question.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you can be optimistic that everyone else in the Central is still pretty bad, but at some point, that doesn't really give you too much hope when the Sox can't even get to that level of mediocrity. And Joe's so disgusted he left. So.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
The sauce is gone, I guess.
It is, yeah.
He's back. He's back. He's back.
Ah, there we go.
I'm sorry. I'm freaking out because I'm seeing this tunnel. You know, like when you see the image where there's like 60 of you behind you. I'm watching our
You're
Twitter
watching us
live, whatever. So I'm freaking out. I'm not a good host when there's not these distractions. So now we're really in trouble. Cue really awful, terrible thing I'm going to end up stumbling into saying. But Joe, you're back. So hey, gut check.
Hi, sorry. I'm really having some trouble over here. We're talking about reasons to be optimistic. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Okay, Luis Robert Jr.
Okay.
He's been playing extremely well. He is light years of everyone else who is a position player, which is kind of a problem. But I mean, it has been exciting to see him having a big breakthrough this season, and he's been a pleasure to watch. It's been nice to see a bounce back from Lucas Giolito and as well. And Gregory Santos has been very reliable out of the bullpen, and they really hadn't expected him to do much of anything this year for them. So, I mean, yeah, they've been exciting players there for sure. And yeah, hard to really talk about reasons to be optimistic without talking about this amazing first couple of Zach Remillard. I don't know how much of that is sustainable. I'm guessing probably not very much, but yeah, it's been exciting though to watch him, just get clutch hit after clutch hit. So, he's already tied for among position player WAR on Fangraphs for them. So that's pretty wild.
You would think that's mathematically impossible, Joe. Okay, Joe, then I have to ask you, again, as long as you're still with us, does this coalesce? I mean, I know your answer because, again, your spice quotient has increased during the course of the season. Does this coalesce, the Luis Robert having the season we've been waiting for him to have, and Lucas having the bounce back as he's making a salary drive? Does this coalesce into anything that makes you feel good about how this team can move forward and perhaps get a little closer to the top of the division?
Possibly. Yeah, you never know in this division what's going to happen. But yeah, a little bit getting a little bit weary of saying, well, it's the AL Central, so you never know. At some points they have to go on a run, and I feel like it looks like it'll be a while before they go on an extended hot streak.
Yes, our Facebook angel Melissa Sage Molenbeek Glass podcast had pointed out, hey, I think I saw something that said that the strength of schedule is going to the White Sox have sort of an advantage there. Things are going to get quote unquote easier, but my initial snarky response to her was, when you're the bottom feeders, you can't really rely too much on strength of schedule because everybody's marking the schedule waiting to play you. You can't exactly turn the tables on other teams. Okay, sure, we get the Royals and we can say, all right, the Royals, but every other team in baseball is like, oh, the White Sox are coming to town? Sounds good. So it is going to be tough to, again, tough. We're talking about tough, and we're 6 games, 5.5 games. And it's been that way for a while now, even still flirting at roughly 10 games worse than 500. This is a bizarre season. I guess if there's any year that a team is going to win a division at 80-82, as Malik has already predicted, it's going to be this one. Given the fact that we've talked a lot on these podcasts and we're always trying to find reasons to not just have to drill down to this 2023 team, because we're not going to come up with solutions, and they're not listening to us. We do come up with solutions, actually. White Sox don't listen to us. So, at some point we are just spitting in the wind, and that gets to be a bummer. It gets wet after a while. So let's pause on that. But I'm curious, broadening it a bit, and not that this needs to be just like a Rick Hahn trash session, although again, every podcast sort of ends up being that. One of the essay questions I sort of threw out to prospective guests on this live stream is wondering, just because I think there are many choices here. Where, I guess when we look at the rebuild itself, the broadness of the rebuild, what was the worst move made? It could be something that didn't happen or a decision that was made. Of the many things that we have on our list of how things went wrong, and among them, some things that, can't be controlled. A guy gets, guy blows out a hip or, whatever. Okay. But I mean, what was the moment in any of your eyes, looking back now with the perspective we have as a 37-49 team, looking up at an AL Central that is, again, for a second straight year, eminently winnable, where it makes you think, oh man, they really blew it on this thing they did do or didn't do.
Yeah, it was just said over in the comments, but I would take it back pretty much to the beginning and saying that not giving Bryce Harper the contract that he wanted when he seemed pretty open to coming here and being the guy in the same way that he has since gone and become the guy in Philly and, got them to a World Series. And, the combination of how he's performed, he's won an MVP, he's finished top 5 a couple times. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory and he's going to be there for another 10 years. It's great. And the White Sox are still playing Gavin Sheets in right field. So it's,
And here's the thing, Malik,
the year they won the division, the one year that they actually won, they started the year with Adam Eaton in right field.
Yeah.
It's hard to look. If we're looking back at everything, it starts there, man. It really did start there.
Maliki, we're reduced to Oscar Colasas coming back up to the team, a real right field, as if, and I mean, great. I hope he goes bananas. I hope he brings his Charlotte numbers. He packs his Charlotte bag and has it rolling on the south side. But that's what we're reduced to, a rookie, like, wow, finally a real right fielder. Yeah, that's a little bit different. I think I'm going to look at the numbers here. I think that's a little bit different than Bryce Harper. Yeah. Joe, Tommy?
I also agree with the Bryce Harper not signing. I think that one is a big one. I think more recently it is just the amalgamation of this expensive ass bullpen for no reason. And I've said this time and time again. I want like 2 Chainz to fly in and do a most expensivest episode on the White Sox bullpen and how awful they are, despite spending all this money. And it doesn't make sense. And it just felt like a bunch of Band-Aids that Rick Hahn just kept going out again and again and again, saying, all right, I'm going to put Joe Kelly in. Okay, I'm going to get this guy and throw him in there. Okay, I'm going to get this guy and throw him in there. And, Tony La Russa was just kind of drunkenly slanted against the wall, being like, yeah, that seems like a good guy. Get another bullpen arm. And it never made sense. Meanwhile, you had starters readily available that could actually help you fill out innings instead of Kopech making it maybe 100 innings, maybe not. All these other scenarios that you had, not having any pitching depth, but just time and time again, Rick Hahn just had this idea that if he just kept getting that right veteran closer or bullpen arm, that it was somehow going to fix all these other problems. And frankly, it's just made things worse from a roster construction standpoint.
Oh, roster construction. That's
like my favorite thing to talk about.
That's like a 5. No, but I mean, that is like a 5-part podcast series, because that really hovers and shadows and creeps over every single thing that's, gone wrong with this team going back, maybe even before rebuild. Okay, Joe, the question's up, and you have it. So the answer now is to you. Where'd it go wrong? Oh, well, Joe, it's an optional answer, I suppose.
Okay. All right. I think the 2018 to 19 offseason is a good place to start.
Okay.
Kind of set the tone for a lackluster sequence of off seasons in free agency, where it became clear that they were not going to get any top tier free agents, and so that was kind of like, okay, they're probably taking some options away as far as a long-term contention plan without when they're not when they're going to be like trying to look for bargains near the middle and of course the bargain bin of the market, which Han has still not had a good history of finding value where there's not a sure thing. For these like mid-tier and low-tier like free agents, it's generally not a very good track record that he's had. So like when Reinsdorf would not go to the 300 million guaranteed for 10 years, which was completely reasonable and actually has turned out to be inexpensive for Machado. That was a pretty rough moment. And I think the other thing was probably just the lack of advancement in the farm system. Like as soon as the core group of prospects that they got primarily via trade and like major trades as well, like trades that they absolutely had to get a good return on. Like after those guys graduated, they were among the worst farm systems once again, and there was just no one really to take their. And had they been able to get even like a 15th ranked farm system after that graduation, I think we might be looking at a little bit of a different situation as catching up some of the holes on this roster right now.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I mean, just as much as we make fun of Rick Hahn for saying, ask me after the parade, I think we should give him just the same amount of shit around the pipeline of talent that doesn't exist. I mean, the minute they started using the draft as an opportunity to cheaply attempt to sign free agents to fill in voids and not really bothering with any true high school talent or younger college talent to actually round out their farm system, I think the whole thing was moot because they had their guys that they took the gamble on off of those initial trades, but you didn't see them trying to replenish the back end of their minor league system the way that most teams do.
We're going to circle back to one of the issues that have come up, which are obvious big ones, the Harper and Machado. But let me get my answer out, and it plays off of something that Drew threw down in the comments there, although he's had a lot of things to say, because there's a lot of things to say about what's failed in the rebuild. And I will, although I did have Machado, that was sort of one of my earmarks, but the other one is, and it's a very different direction to take, but it is the thing we've talked about. I believe, I think, let's see, 152, I think probably the last 100 consecutive podcasts, we've somehow found a reason to mention not extending a qualifying offer to Carlos Rodon for a very relatively low amount of money. Now, okay, it's easy to say he is a 5-WAR pitcher in 2022. Oh man, that was the stupidest thing ever. Okay, yeah, he could have got hurt the same way he's now hurt in 2023. Fine. He's coming off a season where you basically got like 25 million in value for nothing. Give him the money, and maybe that makes a difference between a team that finishes 500 and wins the division. We're talking a lot on front end, like you don't make the investment in a Machado, or you just put up a banner at the United Center, and that's just supposed to attract Bryce Harper for probably a very, very low ball offer. And that I think is probably more significant and overarching failure in this. But while you're in it and you're coming off a 93, I believe, win season, you do not double down, realize you do not have anything in your farm system to supplement what is I guess on paper, very solid rotation, and you just decide to say, Carlos could have still chosen not to take the offer, and then the White Sox just have to deal with like a 40th or 50th pick. They get something. That just set off alarms for me on a number of levels, including just simply putting the most competitive team on the field when you have the opportunity to. There was no other Carlos Rodons walking through the door. Hahn didn't have a master plan where he was going to make legitimate offers to 3 other pitchers just as good. There weren't any other pitchers just as good. So that to me was a real crack in the rebuild. Well into it. I mean, at that point, we weren't rebuilding anymore. The window was open, and this team was supposed to now push into the upper 90s in wins instead of drop back to 81. Seems like so long ago that disappointment came up. All right, before we take a break, although on a live stream, do we take breaks? I think we're just going to have to read live ad copy. So get prepared. I'm going to have to scratch something down. Let's circle back here. And I want to know, because Joe mentioned Machado. I'm sort of Machado camp. Maliki and Tommy both mentioned Bryce Harper in terms of, obviously, those are the two key free agency failures. White Sox were in. They were in both, but Machado certainly advanced far enough to the point where we all sort of thought he was going to be on the White Sox. I'm not sure we ever really thought that about Bryce, whether that was the smarter, play or not. But in terms of what sort of crushes the rebuild, crushes a reputation, opens the team up for mockery, it seems to me like failing on Machado and then sort of the bluster coming from Ken Williams, a guy I almost always defend, really indicated what do these guys have a clue what they're doing. So I would just like a few other thoughts on from the three of you in terms of what gives you more pain in the stomach when you think about it now.
I think the Machado thing stings more only because of the trade with Tatis. Like that, it's like having both of those guys kicking ass on the Padres, even though the rest of the team sucks right now. But both of those guys just like doing so much damage on the Padres, I think was a huge kind of stain. And especially when it was just for James Shields. Like, I don't care that no one else thought that Tatis was going to turn into what he became. Just the fact that you're giving up on prospects for a guy like James Shields, who they could, I mean, Tukey, that's like trading for Tukey Toussaint. Like, you can find guys like that to fill in innings. There wasn't any reason to make that type of a move. I think that's the kind of short-sightedness that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But, in terms of long-term damage, I think that's probably the bigger failure, just because they went through all of these non-move moves to make it seem like Machado was going to come here because they knew his cousin's best friend and went to the wedding of his, it's just like, who cares? Like, none of that mattered. They were all looking at the money. The Sox were nowhere near the money that was really being offered to these guys. And I think it's just the farce of it all that just made the White Sox look like an unserious organization and kind of set the tone.
Crystal makes a good point, Tommy. You're forgetting we got John Jay in that whole deal.
Who everyone forgot about, because he was there for like, a week and then disappeared for half the season.
Yeah. Yeah, he got hurt. He was rehabbing, and then he played for a little bit. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, that was sick.
For me, it was just hard to watch Bryce Harper drag that Phillies team to the World Series last year. A team that was not really,
good.
I see a lot of similarities between the way that team was put together and the way that they kind of botched their own rebuild going back a few years earlier in the White Sox, and just the way their roster was kind of thrown together. He really pulled them across the finish line there, and it's hard to watch that and just not imagine how the last few years might have played out differently if they had a guy like that, not just doing that, but staying healthy too, as he up until this past year really has. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with that one in that case, because you saw it happen. You actually watched it happen in front of you. And it's hard not to wonder.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, as much as Machado seems to be a guy calling out the problems maybe in that clubhouse. I know he and Tatis have had skirmishes before. I'm guessing Machado falls on the side of come ready to play. Tatis maybe doesn't. I don't know. I have no insight into the San Diego clubhouse, because it's enough just to try to deal with divining what's going on with Chicago. But I mean, his leadership hasn't dragged San Diego anywhere. I mean, I guess
No.
they finally got that big thing off their back with the Dodgers, but I mean, seeing as Malachi's saying it play out where Bryce Harper just drags a team and then rushes back with one arm, to be playing now. I mean, okay, whatever. Let's not get into it, injury shaming or whatever. But hey, the guy's not. He's not. He didn't milk an injury. He wants to get out there and play, and now he's doing it this year. To less success for the team, but
I mean, just from a practical standpoint, how many iterations has Rick Hahn tried to fill that right field void? I mean, we had the adventures of Nomar Mazara. We had the return of Adam Eaton for God knows what reason. Like, just all these random permeations of bad outfielders that have just kind of been stuck in there. Not to say that you would ever turn down either free agent because of roster depth, but it's like, at least with shortstop, the White Sox and third base, the shortstop, they had stuff. They've never had an outfielder outside of Luis Robert. So, I mean, it's just, I think that part looks really bad too, and kind of speaks to how it never feels like Rick Hahn has a plan beyond what's immediately in front of him.
Fair.
Blake Rutherford was supposed to be the guy, man. I don't know
Oh,
what to tell you.
God. Is he still in the system somewhere?
In Washington. I believe he's in Washington.
Is he in Washington now?
I think he's in the Washington system. He did go somewhere. Unlike Miker, who is still what? He's still with the Monarchs?
He's at the Monarchs.
Oh, God, that is crazy.
Playing the Bananas every month.
having to hit off a pitcher on stilts.
Exactly.
Oh, boy. Krista, where are you? We could get the Bananas report. Okay, well, let's take a quick break, I guess, because I think between us, me and Joe gave our Machado case. I still think the fact it got so much further along, whether or not Manny Machado is always using the White Sox. I know that's like the postmortem. Oh, he was never coming to the White Sox. He was never serious about it. His wife never would have moved. Okay, well, whatever. It does seem like they were like a day away from signing Manny Machado, and the fact that they got to the finish line and then blustered their way, stumbled and fumbled, and said, "Well, no, our offer was still the best." Under any circumstance you look at it, is just, if nothing else, it's embarrassing. And it weakens the roster. So let's take a break for the podcast. For the purposes of the live stream, you're going to still see us moving. I'm still moving. There is no pause here at all. But on the podcast, Fans First Sports Network is going to take a moment to sell you something. It could be Slap Chop. It could be a T-shirt. I'm gonna guess it might have something to do with gambling. That just seems like that's a fair guess. But no matter what, give it a consideration. Good people at Fans First Sports Network, we love them. So consider what they want to sell you. We'll be back in 1 minute, I promise. And if you're on the live stream, we're not going anywhere. Hey, White Sox fans, live streaming, podcasting, video casting. I don't know what you call all this stuff. We are in 3 locations with burgeoning viewership. Goodness gracious, I'm not sure the counter can take the viewership on our soft open for live streaming at 9:55 Central Time on 4th of July Eve. But I've been lucky enough to get 3 of my very best friends in the whole wide world here with me to join me on 4th of July Eve. That's July 3rd for the rest of the world. It's Tommy Barbie. Almost my neighbor, Tommy Barbie. We call him Buck Mulligan. We call him Malachi, the artist formerly known as Zach. He is here with us, bringing the good vibes, allowing Joe, I mean, really, let's face it, to be part of the broadcast, still representing the Indianapolis field office, sharing time, still paying half of the rent, along with Crystal O'Keefe in the field office. Thanks for being here, Joe. And listen, you've hardly faded away, so it just must be the live stream, Joe. It must be a live stream. Okay, next topic. Okay, I'm going to let, oh boy, Joe has had so much trouble with the live streaming, providing he can get an answer out. I'm going to let him determine what the second half of this podcast, how it starts, because we've got a 2-pronged question, and I'm sure we're going to have fun with the answers. When the White Sox made you happiest, and when they made you saddest. Joe, the question is first to you, and you can choose to answer one of those. And we're either going to get the medicine out of the way first, or we're going to just start happy and hope that everybody else hangs up on the live stream before we have to get to all the sad stuff. So it's up to you. Tell us if we want to start happy or sad, and then give me your answer. Joe is going to, he is meditating on the answer.
Okay.
Are you with it?
I think I need the thing that we do on here, something where we have the question on the screen for like.
Okay. Tommy Barbie.
Would someone like to
It's
go
coming. Tommy Barbie. We are going Southside Sox, old school longevity. Joined Southside Sox before even I did. So that's old school. I mean, look at the two of us. Can you imagine that Tommy Barbie's older than me? It's not it's not possible. It is just not possible. But look, he's older than me. Go figure. Tommy, the question is now to you. You can choose to take the medicine first or just get sweet. Give me your answer, and then I'll type it for Joe.
Happiest, obviously 2005. I mean, that will never be topped, especially at the rate this team's going now. So there's that. The saddest, I would
no, Tommy,
nope,
no, we're not answering both. We're just going one, and then we're going to the
happy.
Other. We're going happy, and then we're going to get sad. Then we're going to get sad. Okay, tell me this then, Tommy. I got to follow up with you then.
Yeah.
What then what? I mean, I guess it's actually winning, but I mean, what in 2005 or the World Series itself? Was there a moment? When did you know that? As if you really ever felt you knew until the final out. But I mean, what was there a moment maybe besides the pile up, on the mound after Game 4 that like was a real peak moment? Like, oh my God, this is going to happen.
It didn't feel real until it actually happened. But after putting away the Red Sox, that was when it was just like, all right, I could see this coming together, because I mean, that was huge. It's not easy to make Chris Berman shut up. So that was just an amazing moment. He was so sad. He was so angry and sad. He didn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah, that's all I wanted going in. I said, let's win one playoff series. It was like, it was house money after that. I was like, just get the one. And then that happened so easily. It's like, oh, well, okay.
Exactly.
Well, this resets my expectations now.
Yeah.
Okay, kick it back to you, Joe. Then now the question is the happiest the White Sox have ever made you.
Yes, thank you. I know what the question is. I think the first thing that came to mind was the World Series victory in 05. I feel like that's a bit too cliche. I'm going to go with Lucas Giolito's no-hitter in 2020. I mean, Giolito is one of my favorite players to ever play for the White Sox. Had the very high privilege of being able to meet him at Sox Fest back when that existed, and that was one of the best games I've ever seen pitched. Just only needing 101 pitches to throw a no-hitter with 13 strikeouts and only one walk. I mean, it was, granted, it was a terrible lineup, but I don't really care. I mean, regardless of how bad a lineup is, it's very, very difficult to be that dominant over 9 innings in Major League Baseball. So that's one of my favorite games in MLB history, and was a pleasure to watch it. And was certainly a bright spot in a very, very strange year.
Yeah, newly married Sam, congratulations, and Janice both got to cover that game for us in one of our 600 guises. That one at the time was Southside Hip Pen, Sports Illustrated. Tommy also showed up for a few games there too. They didn't get a no hitter for you though, Tommy. They must not like you that much.
They
Sorry,
clinched.
Tommy.
I got to see them clinch. I'll take
Come
that.
On. Heck yeah, no hitter, no hitter. Okay, Malachi. Give me an answer. Give me a happy answer.
Yeah, so I guess I'll follow the ride the wave here, and I'll go with Mark Burley's perfect game, which was I was fortunate enough to be in attendance at, and as as a middle schooler who was already, buried in all of the, nerdy baseball stat history books and stuff like that, thought Bill James's almanac was the greatest thing in the world. That was just an incredible thing to be able to watch and being like aware of what was going on the entire time with the, you throw in things like the Dwayne Wise catch. It was kind of, as far as, there's only 24, well, I'd like there to be 23, but different story. But anyway, amongst perfect games, all perfect games are unique.
Yeah.
Yes. All perfect games are unique, but even amongst no hitters and perfect games, that one was quirky. It was, only 6 strikeouts. It was, 2 hours. It was Mark Burley. It was quintessential Mark Burley. So that was kind of a peak outside of the World Series for a team that always kind of just fell short of expectations for a long time during that time.
I mean, Malachi was a Josh Fields grand slam, for crying out loud. Come on, you want to talk about needles in a haystack? No, okay. Now, me and Tom, we've already discussed it. We've been at certain games together, certain milestone games, and Malachi, we are also both at the perfect game. So, where were you at the perfect game? Where were you sitting? So I could have waved to you or like stole a hot dog over your.
I have the ticket stub chilling right here. It's 147, row 1, seat 3. It was. Not our tickets, that's for sure. I don't know how the hell
we same deal. We were close, same deal, Malachi. I probably stepped over you to get to my, or my dad most likely bragged about me or yelled at you or your father about something because he's happy and sad at every single game, every single moment of his life. That's a tough one to pass. I'd never forget the air leaving the stadium when Gabe Kepler made that contact. It just went silent. And then like 3 seconds later, we're like, what happened? Oh my God, what happened? All right. My answer, I'll pick a World Series moment. We're all picking 2, right? So I'll pick World Series. I'll say just game 2, because I was lucky enough to go to the World Series games and game 2, it's not done yet. But I mean, you're feeling really good about it. This team is definitely feeling like a team of destiny at this point. You figure they're coming back. I didn't think that was the last game of the season I'd see, because you figure, come on, Houston's, I don't know, those were close games. So I mean, come on. But I mean, going home from that game, you thought, okay, wait a minute. This, we're never going to count anything. We're White Sox. I see the jersey I'm wearing, so I know what I am. But wow, this is feeling good. And I would say probably already sort of shouted out Tommy and his clinching coverage, but I would say just getting to cover the first time. I mean, I covered some in 2005 writing for the team program, so I guess that counts. But really getting up there for the first time, coming right off of the Blackhawks run and then jumping onto the Sox beat. I can't even remember the game for sure. It was close to the Cubs series. Maybe I caught in Atlanta. They were right about to start. They had just started that 25 out of 30 run. So, of course, naturally, it was me that was the good luck. So that made me feel good, too. But just being able to cover, it's something I mean, who doesn't dream of that? And being able to do it and then knowing I'd have the job for a while. But it was, I mean, come on, that's a thrill and a different than covering as a freelancer. So being able to be up there on press row in 2010 was pretty, and White Sox didn't do anything to make me happy, even though, of course, they went 25-5 and made me feel like I was the lucky charm like Malachi is. But then they proved me wrong as the season went on. So I guess we have to turn the corner now. And, we've talked a lot about the rebuild. So this answer might not be rebuild. In fact, I don't know. We're all adults here. We're sort of grown up. So I'm not sure that anything in this rebuild era would have necessarily made us saddest. But I don't answer for anybody. So it can be anybody on the board. Now that we know we have to talk about saddest moment. Now I want to know when the White Sox made you saddest. Now I know maybe we just need to put maybe another commercial break, because I know everybody needs to jot their notes down, because I imagine it's 10 or listed 10 or 20. But if something pops out right off, please shout it out. Any one of you.
Can we wait until after the trade deadline?
No, we'll just revisit it. We've got other podcasts. We have to do podcasts. So we'll, table it for a month and we'll revisit. I'll say, Tommy Barbie, you have an opportunity to change your answer. So what is it now? Oh, you
Well,
guys are so
we
sweet
can
that nothing's ever made you
let's
sad.
yeah. Let's be honest. If we're talking about just being sad, let's be real. The day they signed Mike Clevenger was terrible. That
Yeah,
was
it's true.
terrible. I have never felt worse about being a
Yeah,
White Sox fan than I did on
yeah,
that day, and I don't think it's close.
yeah.
LaRussa was
So
really close.
that was the other, those moments of just being let down, of just being, you can't believe they actually followed through and did this shit, and those are tough to bounce back from, especially when they get, just they happen over and over again.
So Malachi, you felt bad, as we all did, of course, and we've been railing against this, and it's just nice that he's gone for a period of time so he doesn't have to hover over this team, even though it still sort of does. But here, Malachi, you felt bad when they announced the signing, and when Rick Hahn jumped the market to sign him, like he tends to do for the worst fellas. But then it got worse. I mean, not that it, not that it wasn't bad enough, but it got worse. So I'm guessing you felt as bad or maybe worse in still days to come.
Yeah, I should clarify. That's really, I have forgotten that they actually didn't, in theory, publicly know about it at the time of the signing. So I should clarify when that actually became public is the day that I'm referring to. I was just regular mad when they signed him, and
You're right. Like
was,
what?
yeah. And it only got so much worse.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was spring training when we had the apologist behavior, and now when he's actually active, we just treat him like a regular. The beat and the team just treat him like a regular guy. How was your velocity? How'd your arm feel? Were you angry at that ball fork? Whatever. Talking the guy like he's a human being. Thanks, White Sox. Okay, well, Joe or Tommy, feel free.
Yeah, I would answer, but again, this is why I haven't been doing a lot lately. People can hear me, I can't hear them for some reason. So, yeah, Tommy can go ahead with this.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, it makes sense. Thank you, because we just talked about the happiest stuff. I probably could have guessed this. Saddest. Oh my.
We're watching it unfold in real time.
Can I predict the future when Giolito gets traded? That's going to be the saddest.
Okay. I mean, you are blatantly bald-faced stealing Tommy's answer in 1 month in the future, but that's fine. Hey, listen, he snoozed. I told him he had to snooze on it, so yeah, go ahead and steal it. So Giolito being traded is going to preemptively bum you out.
Yeah. I think I'll go with, since this year is kind of an unresolved mystery for now, even though I kind of have a strong hunch about where this season is heading, I'm gonna go with just last few weeks of 2022 when Cleveland pulled away. There for a long time, the Sox are 4 or 5 games above 500 in a weak division. They might actually do it, and then Cleveland goes on a tear, and then the Sox went on a big losing streak to kind of seal the deal. That was, and then Cleveland went on to kind of throw back the NBC Sports Chicago tweets, back in the fan base's face. That was just a low point, and I found myself just being very apathetic at that point, which is an unusual feeling, but it was kind of okay, yeah, nice, we deserve it. I didn't even really have any bad feelings towards Cleveland. I was good for them, was kind of my feeling, but it was kind of sad for sure to be feeling that way.
They had plenty of bad feelings towards us, though. Now, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, and if I was smart, if I'm a good editor, I will link this in our post. You did a story earlier. One of your columns was ranking, like, I don't know, the 20 seasons or something of your life, and I believe 2022 was the season you actually listed as the worst one in your heart. Am I right?
Yes, that is
Okay.
That is correct.
All right. So yeah, this is not a bluff answer. This is a real answer for sure. We mentioned a lot about that Fresh Prince tweet, but we overlook a lot the guy who was working for NBC at the time too, who put out the one. Is this Slava? I know we put him in the Cold Cats list for one poll. Who said the thing about like Marcus Simeon and Corey Seager? Is this what you want to spend your money?
You really
That's
want
a
to spend
pretty
money
bad
on
one
good
too.
Players? How dare you?
And that was at a time when those guys hadn't exactly gone. I mean, obviously now it's looking better by the day. But I mean, again, it's just in theory, like really, we're gonna have to examine. We're gonna have to like give the thumbs up for Jerry's money being spent. Good Lord, man. But I guess Jerry owns 40% of NBC Sports Chicago. So I don't know. I never behaved that way. They owned 40% when I was working there. Tommy, I cut off your answer, correct? I'm sorry, Joe cut off your answer. We cut off your answer.
I mean, all the answers were like times where I felt like sorry for the White Sox or like was angry at them. Like, Clevenger and all the weirdness was just like, it was so bad. I just was more angry at Rick Hahn because it was just like, what the hell are you doing? I think like actual sadness for me was that the White Sox never followed up that 2005 season with a real true effort, and they came close to doing so many things. And you hear the stories now in retrospect of all the trades that were supposed to have happened that didn't happen or didn't get approved or whatever. And it's just kind of a shame that the White Sox were a one and done team, because I think it kind of undermines a lot of the true talent that they had on that roster during that time.
Okay. Despite the fact that we've established earlier in this podcast that Tommy is clearly and significantly older than me, I am going old school with my answer because I've mentioned it before, it is the last time I have cried over a sports game result. Last week when they blew that game. No, it wasn't last week. It was 1983. It was
I knew that was where you're going.
Hitting a home run, and it was so. I mean, that's an A. I mean, I won't identify my age because it might be embarrassing, but I'm still a young enough fan. And come on, you're investing everything in the team. This is the first truly great White Sox team. I mean, I was a Southside Hitman kid, but they fizzled out. White Sox had every excuse to go to the World Series and maybe even win a World Series that year. They could not be stopped in the second half, an extraordinary second half like we will never see. I don't know about in baseball, but I do not think we will see it in Chicago White Sox annals because it was such an unbalanced season. They started out so poorly. And then seeing Britt Burns dejected on the mound with such a gutting out effort. I mean, really some of the last games he would ever pitch, he pitched 2 more seasons, I believe. I mean, that hip was a ticking time bomb. So that one got me. And I mean, it's only in part because I actually was going to get to go see Game 5, the Game 5 that was promised to us all, but didn't happen. Still got my ticket stub somewhere. I should put it on the wall like Malachi does there. Although that's sort of like a reminder of that's actually a horrifying reminder. Why would I put it on the wall? What am I thinking? It's the punchiness that comes along with the live stream. Soft open of our live stream. And I've never done this before. So I did just want to see if like the things would work. It appears that they all work. We are talking to some folks on the Facebook. We are seeing viewers on Elon Musk's Twitter for another program or so. Hey, Elon, don't get angry at us. Don't cut us off. Don't give us a blue check mark either. And also, what's the other thing? Oh, yeah, YouTube. Hey, friends at YouTube. Thank you for watching. We will hype in the future per per elder Tommy Barbie's suggestion, we will post in the future on site on Southside Sox saying, hey, this is the time. This is, we got something coming, and we'll embed a player there so you can watch. If you like, or if you have limited clicks, then you want to click over to YouTube, and then just watch on Southside Sox as long as they let us. So yeah, soft open. Thanks for the few viewers who showed up, including our very, very favorite. And clearly, what was I thinking? My best friend in the whole wide world, Crystal O'Keefe. Sorry, Tommy. Sorry, Super Joe. Sorry, Malachi. Thanks for the viewing and the comments. And I imagine we will have more robust sessions in the future. And who knows, maybe we'll have more fun things to talk about. Here's the thing. You got to come up with a good agenda, because if the fun thing you're going to talk about is the 2023 White Sox, well, we all know, dear viewers, we all know that's not going to be any fun at all. So we'll try to come up with fun categories like, when did the White Sox last make you cry? And I'll come up with the other 84 times they made me cry, because probably more than just 1983. Anyhow, any last thoughts from my friends on this live stream? Joe can't hear me, so I should do the Melissa Sage Bullock and just like hold up signs for Joe. But last thoughts for this maiden voyage of whatever this thing is. Happy Fourth. Stay safe.
Yeah, happy Fourth. Stay safe and prepare for things get much, much worse. So save all your sadness for August 1st.
Hey, everybody, keep watching. Make sure to subscribe. Bookmark.
I don't know. I think they're going to keep us in this purgatory for the rest of the year. I think we're doomed to be 10 games under and 5 games back for the whole ride.
What are the options? Okay, yeah, like bonus speed category. What are the options, given that we did refer to Carlos Rodon in this very podcast? Okay, what is the possibility? Malachi, I want you to answer this first. What is the possibility that they hold on to Lucas, as you've predicted all along in several podcasts? Because again, I'm not creative enough to come up with different topics, so we talk about the same stuff every time. But please, everybody, keep viewing every single one of these podcasts, because we'd love to have you. And there's always a fun wrinkle, like again, who's weeping and who can hear. But Malachi, what is the chance? It's got to be more than 0 that they ride out the season with Lucas Giolito and then don't offer him the QO.
I mean, hey, man.
I have to ask. I mean, we think it's 100% they will. Is it 100%?
The only reason I'm going to say no is just because with Rodon, am I mistaken in thinking that Scott Boras was involved? Was he his representative?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. And there is always fuckery with Scott Boras. Who's to say where it
particularly
originates?
with the White Sox. Yeah.
Particularly with the White Sox. So I'm a little less concerned about that. I mean, I wasn't concerned about Rodon not getting a qualifying offer at the time either. So, I mean, who's to say? But I'd like to think maybe they learned from that mistake, but who's to say with any kind of confidence? I don't know.
Tommy or Joe, you think there's any chance that they do not extend the QO to Giolito if they keep him all year?
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry. I mean, I wouldn't count on it, but you never know with these things. But yeah, I was of the opinion heading into the year that if Giolito had a bounce back year, he wouldn't be back. But if he repeated his disappointing performance from 2022, that he probably, the White Sox, I could see them giving kind of like a little bit of a loyalty contract that was a little bit higher than the low market rate. And I think I'm going to stick to that. He's had a nice year so far, and I don't think that they're willing to pay the market rate for him. And I think it's very likely that he'll be on a different team here.
Okay, Tommy, in spite of the fact that we all knew that Rick Hahn would extend a qualifying offer to Carlos Rodon, and yet he did not.
And yet,
do you predict that there's no chance that will happen again, or is there a chance that will happen again?
It will absolutely happen again. I am I am almost sure of it.
Okay, let's cut through this then, and we have a second speed round question, and that is: do you buy the postmortem? I mean, we talk a lot of postmortems here. All these podcasts actually are postmortems. Let's face it, postmortem White Sox. After the fact, I mean, I don't even know if it was ever said, and I don't know that a GM can say this, but certainly it was strongly intimated that the White Sox chose to be good guys and not limit Rodon's market by attaching the draft pick by making that offer. Is there any chance that was true? Because I'll tell you now, there's zero. Well, let's put it this way: it shouldn't be true. I don't think it is true. It absolutely shouldn't be true. What are we waiting for Valentines from players? What is going on here? Is there any chance of that really being the case? Like somehow word will get out that the White Sox will want to keep their players or something? I mean, I don't really get it, but any chance that actually is true?
You know, I wonder if there was almost, if Rodon came back to the White Sox was it a minor league deal that he, on just a spring training invite that he, after being non-tendered, or was it, 1 year, $3 million, something like that?
I think it was the $3 million. I think it was I think he was guaranteed a roster, but it was $3 million.
Way, it makes me wonder if maybe there was some kind of deal cut there where, I suspect he probably could have gotten more than $3 million coming off a non-tender there, even with his injury history. But I don't know. And I think the history with Lucas Giolito specifically in the nickel and diming over, a few $50,000, whatever it was, in the near arbitration case last year, they don't seem to have a problem, sticking him financially. So again, I'm whatever was going on there, it seemed like something weird that was kind of specific to Carlos Rodon. Although, again, who's to say? It was kind of one of a kind at the time, but history repeats itself. So,
yeah. Oh, and that's right. He was hurt. Remember, the medicals must have indicated his arm was, and as it turns out, I guess a year later he was. But boy, the White Sox could have used that 5-war season in San Francisco. All those medicals.
No, I think
Tommy, yeah.
I mean, I think it was a case of Boris outmaneuvering the White Sox again. I mean, it would not surprise me if Boris dangled one of his clients in front of the White Sox and said, "Hey, if you want a shot at signing so-and-so, let's make this easier for Rodon, and I can put in a good word and make this a little bit easier for you." And it probably never came to fruition. So I would not be surprised if that's what happened, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again.
Teaser for future podcasts. I'll tell the story when Scott Boras called me on the phone and bawled me out for something Jerry Reinsdorf said. But that's for a future podcast as we keep the good vibes going for the rest of the season, sometimes even live streaming to one of 3 destinations, one of which you may have watched or be watching us on right now. Oh, we love you for it. Again, 3 of my closest friends in the world, perhaps not best friends because Crystal might still be listening and watching. My best friends in the whole wide world, Tommy Barbie, Malachi Hayes, and the in and out, a delightful Sox math champ, the wizard of the Indianapolis field office, and soon to be the wizard of West Coast, Super Joseph Reeses. I'm Brett Ballantini, somehow once again your host on these podcasts. I'll keep stumbling my way through them as long as this machine turns on and now we can broadcast live out into the world. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg. Thank you, Elon Musk. Thank you, YouTube, Google. Do we have to thank them every podcast? Okay, well, thank you. No, I don't ever want to thank them again. Friggin' dirtbags. Okay, anyhow, thank you for joining us on this podcast live stream. Whatchamajigger. Maybe in a week we'll do another one. Maybe in a few days we'll do another one. We would like to actually establish a schedule. Tommy told me we should. So I guess I'll try to do that. But at any rate, seems like a week is about as much as we can take on these. So perhaps we'll roll another one out for you soon. And we'll tell stories about crying at baseball games and Scott Boras and Malachi watching the White Sox from Ireland and Super Joseph walking down the street and just deciding to solve Sox math that drops out of the sky, and Tommy Barbie's scouting missions to go see White Sox minor leaguers. A lot of fun stuff, as you can tell by that preview, a lot of fun stuff to come. Thank you for joining us. We'll do it again soon. I'm going to try to end our broadcast day now, although at some point we will just go all night because why not? We've already done 152 of these. Why not just go all night? But for now, a ta-ta, and we'll see you again sooner than you are ready to see us.